Yeah, he basically framed him as a traitor. And what's the punishment for treason? We all know what that is. I mean, this is the worst thing you can possibly do.
We have updates. Folks, President Trump made us a promise during his first term, and many of us were disappointed that it didn't come to fruition. He didn't go the distance. And I think in hindsight, we can understand why he didn't go the distance. And that was drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. Everyone grab your Tylenol bottles. Drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. I know it's silly. It's silly, folks. It's late. It's a late night. It's late. But folks, this is incredible. We're going to be talking about James Comey, John Brennan, Hillary Clinton, the usual suspects. And folks, already the swamp is being drained. Like right now. And more of the draining is going to happen. I think next week we're going to be seeing more of the draining of the swamp. I'll get into all of that. Big hug. Appreciate you being here. Okay, so it was expected that today, Friday, or yesterday, Friday, depending when you're watching this, the 26th of September, that James Comey was going to report and was going to surrender. But that's not what happened, okay? So the original reporting was that the Department of Justice, after they had dropped the hammer on this very crooked swamp creature, this all happened from a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia, returning 2 counts against Comey, saying that that he had 2 felony charges, making false statements and obstruction of justice. Now, we've known about crooked Comey for a very long time. Folks, the big thing here is back in 2016, during this whole thing with FISA abuses and Crossfire Hurricane, James Comey knew in 2016 that the Steele dossier was completely fabricated. It was opposition research that came from the Hillary Clinton camp. There was no there, okay? And plus, he didn't disclose a lot of things, and he lied. Now, as I covered yesterday, President Trump has something to say about this. I'm not going to go over his Truth Social post. But we also got a statement from FBI Director Kash Patel. We got a statement from DOJ leader AG Pam Bondi. And so in typical Orange Man is bad, I'm an innocent guy, James Comey released a video batting his eyes once again, making himself the victim.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way.
But we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. Oh my goodness. We just see here that James Comey has made himself the hero standing up to big bad Orange Man. Ridiculous. You know what, though? I got to give Comey credit. We can see right through his BS, but he is one of the better actors when it comes to looking like the innocent target. I mean, you can see that, but I think he plays it fairly, fairly well. He plays it better than others of his ilk, than his compadres, than his fellow comrades. He goes on to say,
"We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either." Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either.
Come on, Comey. Why the hell will we be afraid? We were not crooked, treasonous, traitorous, rat bastard FBI directors abusing the FISA system and going after the political opponent of our preferred candidate and abusing our power. So don't conflate your problem with our issues. They are not the same.
I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does.
Guess what, James Comey? We voted for it. We voted for it. Okay, we did vote for it. This is, well, this electoral map of 2016, very similar. This is one of the OG merch shirts, one of the OG merch shirts. But yeah, we voted for it, folks. Yeah, we do remember. That's why we didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. That's why we didn't vote for Joe Biden. Well, that's why I didn't vote for Joe Biden. Well, if you want to know how I feel about what really happened 5 years ago with Joe Biden becoming president, make sure you check out my other show, because you're not supposed to talk about that here on this platform. Let's just say, 2020 was one big which should have led to another version of this. But that's okay. We got it in 2024 in November. Okay? So James Comey, yes, we do remember how we should vote, and that's exactly what we do.
My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Okay, so Friday, James Comey didn't turn himself in. Actually, according to CNN, who had two sources, they did say that the initial expectation was that Jim Comey would surrender on Friday, but there was no immediate arrest warrant filed. And it turns out that he has an arraignment date for October 9th. It's going to take place in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia. And CNN's reporting that it's going to happen at 10 in the morning. So, Jesse Waters and others announced last night that he's going to turn himself in on on Thursday night. He did not turn himself in. So we now know that he has an arraignment October 9th. So how come there was no big arrest? How come he didn't get the treatment that, I don't know, Steve Bannon got, that Roger Stone got? Wasn't it also Peter Navarro had to immediately show up to court? Maybe he was arrested. I don't remember how to deal with it. How come he didn't get that? Well, I can tell you, Roger Stone posted that video of James Comey saying, "I'm innocent. We can't live on our knees. I'm not afraid. Let's have a trial." Roger Stone tweeted out late Friday, "Wait, why isn't Comey being gagged by the federal judge in this case like I was? In fact, why isn't he allowed to turn himself in? Why isn't he subjected to a 6 a.m. raid on his home by 29 heavily armed FBI agents?" Because even in the era of President Trump, it's still not a fair system. It's still not a fair system. The other side gets away and is able to do things that we can't do. And that is the reality of the situation. It's not a fair system. Okay, so let's since we're talking about Roger Stone had this truth bomb. Remember Eric Siebert, who President Trump fired and then they said that he resigned? Well, U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert had a stunning, huge, monumental conflict of interest. He kept it hidden, and it may be one of the reasons why he got fired. If you recall, last week, President Trump said, "Today I withdrew the nomination of Eric Siebert as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia when I was informed that he received the unusually strong support of two absolutely terrible sleazebag Democrat senators from the great state of Virginia. He didn't quit. I fired him." Okay? Because he was trying to, the fake news saying, "Oh yeah, he quit. He quit." Well, this is what Roger Stone had to say. This is what Roger Stone had to say. He said,
"So the U.S. attorney who was fired by Donald Trump in the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, prepared a 51-page memo arguing that former FBI Director James Comey should not be indicted for lying to Congress under oath. What he didn't include in his memo is the fact that Siebert has a stunning conflict of interest. You see, his father-in-law, the father of his wife, is the godfather to James Comey's daughter. You can't make this stuff up."
Siebert didn't disclose that his father-in-law, his wife's father, is the grandfather of Comey's daughter. That, folks, is a stunning conflict of interest. He should have recused himself a long time ago. But you know what he was really up to? He had drafted a 51-page memo on why James Comey should not be indicted, charged, arrested, investigated. That's right. His father-in-law is the godfather of one of James Comey's daughter. Crazy. But that's how it is, folks. That's how the swamp rolls. And boy, is the swamp out there protecting him. I can tell you who their one of their spokesholes is, one of their agents of disinformation is, and that is Senator Blumenthal, who made his rounds on the airwaves. He was on MSNBC, and he said the following: "It's a really dark, sad day, scary day for America." And goes on to talk about, justice and injustice or whatever. But then when he says here, it's very, very interesting. He says,
we need to preserve basic norms, essential rules that protect all of us. And the old saying, what comes around goes around.
What comes around goes around? He's trying to say that, well, let me play you the whole, let me tell you the whole thing he said here.
Today it's a Republican president, but degrading the democracy and ruining, literally perverting the great ethos and tradition of the Department of Justice, where I was in awe when I walked through those halls as a federal prosecutor. I think it's time for Republican colleagues to say enough is enough, and we are going to push them and do it hard on the Senate floor, privately, in the Judiciary Committee meetings, every moment, every opportunity.
What he's saying is what comes around goes around, that today it's a Republican president, but that later Democrat president might start going after Republicans. Hello, that's what we lived through for the last 4 years of Obama 3.0. Oh, I'm sorry, the Biden-Harris administration. That's crazy. But let's turn to what our duly elected and beloved president, Donald John Trump, had to say about the draining of the swamp and what's coming down the pipe for these treasonous, traitorous rat bastards. So President Trump was on the White House lawn talking to reporters on Friday morning, and President Trump dropped the mic. So one of the reporters said, "Are you worried a Democrat president will indict your FBI director now?" You see how they all have the same talking points. Blumenthal saying, "What comes around goes around," and then the reporter asking him this morning.
So, President Trump, are you worried now that the next time there's a Democratic president, they will indict your FBI director or people in your administration?
That's what they tried to do, right? They did it with me for 4 years. They went after me. They went after me for 4 years, and that doesn't include the 4 great years that we had in the White House. So when I ran it from 2016 when we won.
So they try to go after President Trump when they had a Democrat president, Joe Biden. And that doesn't include all of the stuff they did to him while he was president for the 4 years in his first term.
It began before I got to office. You know that. Wait a minute. Before I came to office, I started hearing rumors about Russia. I said, what the hell do I have to do with Russia? Nothing.
Then the reporter says, is this more about justice or is it about revenge? Remember, the whole narrative is that President Trump is going after his political opponents. It's absolutely incredible that they would even try to use that narrative after defending Joe Biden and Merrick Garland and Letitia James and Alvin Braggs and all these other people who have gone after President Trump over the last 4 years.
Because that's how it went, where they made you go and take a mugshot. Is this more about justice or is it about revenge?
It's about justice, really. It's not revenge. It's about justice. It's also about the fact that you can't let this go on. They are sick, radical left people, and they can't get away with it.
And they can't get away with it. That's right. They can't get away with it.
And Comey was one of the people. He wasn't the biggest, but he's a dirty cop. He's always been a dirty cop. Everybody knew it.
All right, I got to interject here. President Trump saying that Comey wasn't the top guy. There was people higher than him. Who's higher than the FBI director? Well, it would be the Attorney General, and then it would be the president, right? So Loretta Lynch and Obama. That's what President Trump is telling us. Then President Trump also kind of let us know that there's going to be more indictments. that are coming out for these bad actors, deep staters, the Comeyites, the treasonous traitors, rat bastards. President Trump says there will be others. And then he kind of softens it and says, that's my opinion.
Comey has been indicted. Who is the next person on your list in this retribution?
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats. Because Comey essentially was he was worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey. But no, there'll be others. Look, that's my opinion.
And then, when talking about Comey specifically, he says he lied. The guy lied. He just thought that he wouldn't get caught.
They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope there are others, because you can't let this happen to a country.
Will you appoint a permanent U.S. attorney to try this case? Lindsey Halligan has never tried a case.
Well, we'll see, but it's a pretty easy case because, look, he lied. You saw my truth today. He lied. It was yes, no. He didn't say, well, in my opinion. He didn't do a lot of things that maybe he should have, but I don't think he could because he lied. That was a very important question that he was asked, and he wanted to be specific, but he didn't. The only thing that happened to him, he didn't think he'd get caught.
So President Trump letting us know that there's going to be more indictments. Who's going to be next? We don't know. But one of the ways that President Trump is draining the swamp is kind of like what they're doing with the illegal aliens, right? What they told the illegal aliens is, hey, go on CBP-1, self-deport. Self-deport. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing people self-deporting out of the DOJ. They're getting rid of themselves. They are getting rid of themselves. This is really good. This is according to MSNBC's Ken Delanian, talking about how multiple DOJ officials are already planning to reside over Comey's indictment. This is what he said. People I talked to inside DOJ will be leaving over the Comey indictment because if they try to stand up and fight, they will be fired unceremoniously. So that's very interesting. Now, here is the bad news. Here is why maybe Comey thought he can get away with it, and it has to do with the swamp machine in the judiciary in that region. So, you know how these cases are supposed to be randomly assigned? Well, Comey's criminal case was assigned to a Biden-appointed judge. U.S. District Judge Michael Nachmanoff is a Biden appointee. He was the one who got the random assignment to Comey's case. Now, Nachmanoff, he sits in the federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. Politico is reporting, quote, has had some brushes with Trump world before. As a federal magistrate judge, Nachmanoff presided over the 2019 arraignment of two associates of Rudy Giuliani, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, who were charged with campaign finance violations. He released them on a $1 million bond. So, as a federal magistrate, he did his job as a swamp creature. That is why Joe Biden made him a U.S. District Judge. So, let's see what happens, folks. Let's see what happens. Remember, I told you that the first domino to fall would be James Comey. But I was very, very clear in, let's say, tempering or managing my expectations. James Comey is going to be charged. I said, and indicted. That has happened. He wasn't perp walked. I want to see more perp walks. Folks, give him the same treatment. I'm cool with that revenge. I'm cool with that revenge or retribution or justice. If it can happen to Roger Stone, why can't it happen to the former FBI director? This is where they lack the balls, the cojones to go all the way through. I'm sorry. I know my mom's probably going to watch this on the replay. Perdóname, madre, perdóname. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I'm 51 years old right now. Why am I apologizing to my mom? It's called respect, folks. Honor thy mother and thy father, that their days may be long. And I want to have long, long days, because I have the first of many grandchildren already on this earth, and I want to enjoy them. So, love you, Mom. Sorry for being crass. So, what else do we have when it comes to the draining of the swamp? We have this, folks. Joe Hoft, I don't know if it was on joehoft.com or over at the Gateway Pundit, but he reported that Jim Comey's son-in-law, who worked in the Department of Justice in the Eastern District of Virginia, wasn't happy about this, and by Thursday evening he was gone. Okay, so they're already doing the job for us. Jim Comey's son-in-law, Troy Edwards, was a prosecutor on the Oath Keepers January 6th trial, where Biden's corrupt DOJ claimed, based on bogus evidence, that the Oath Keepers intended to commit an insurrection on January 6th. Okay, and then they produced the document. So Edwards was involved in this, and the good thing is he's out. He's out. Ken Delanian again. Two sources familiar with the matters tell me prosecutors in the EDVA U.S. Attorney's Office presented newly sworn U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan with a memo explaining why charges should not be brought against James Comey because there wasn't enough evidence to establish probable cause. But it happened anyway because, as we know, these were their own friends, literally friends and family, protecting James Comey. So let's see. That's what we have, folks. Just after Comey's indictment, his son-in-law, Troy Edwards, resigned from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Eastern Virginia. He was the deputy chief of the National Security Section, overseeing major prosecutions. In his, this is what he said in his letter to Lindsay Halligan, the United States Attorney. Dear Ms. Halligan, to uphold my oath to the Constitution and country, I hereby resign as an Assistant United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Effective immediately. So, man, talk about friends and family. Let's not forget Comey's daughter and her involvement in everything from P. Diddy to Jeffrey Epps. So, boy, is the swamp deep. Now, I want to go back to Senator Blumenthal because not only was he on MSNBC, he also made his rounds to CNN, and he dropped this doozy. He said that we are writing legislation that will give remedies and rights to people who are victims of malicious prosecution. We have to provide safeguards because we've seen clearly how the ordinary norms are defined by this autocratic president. We're on the way to tyranny if we're permitted to go forward. So the Democrats who cheered on all the ridiculous indictments under Joe Biden are all of a sudden now drafting legislation to, I don't know what, protect their own? Wasn't it you, Senator Blumenthal, who on December 22nd, on December 19th, 2022, said, no one is above the law. Accountability is key to public trust. These principles are elemental, no matter who or how high the position. Oh, I guess he forgot about that. And the Democrats did as well. Okay, speaking of Hillary Clinton and James Comey, we now know, and it probably wasn't very difficult to ascertain this, that person number one in James Comey is Hillary Clinton. Okay, so details about Comey's criminal indictment are still not immediately clear. However, we know that the former FBI director was charged with lying to Congress during a hearing on September 30th, 2020. Quote, on or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James B. Comey Jr., did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to a U.S. Senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James B. Comey Jr., had not authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person number one. That statement was false because, as James B. Comey Jr. then and there knew, he in fact had authorized person number 3 to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person 1. That's the indictment. Okay, ABC News is reporting that person number 1 is Hillary Clinton and person number 3 is Comey's secret media mole, Daniel Richman. Okay, but this is what we have a little bit more details according to ABC. The Justice Department is still offering few details about their case against former FBI Director James Comey, but ABC News has learned that count 1 of the indictment, charging Comey with false statements focused on his alleged mole, in having his close friend and former personal lawyer, Daniel Richman, provide information and reports about an FBI investigation connected to Hillary Clinton. Sources tell ABC News who these two people are. And let's not forget that when it comes to Richman, it was his personal... not once did Comey ever disclose that Daniel Richman was one of his personal lawyers or an unpaid employee of the FBI until right before his testimony. So they got James Comey dead to rights. But he also now has this judge, a total Biden guy and a swamp creature. So let's see how that goes. Oh, what I was saying before is I told you that James Comey would be the first one indicted, but I think I was very clear. Now all these big fish are going to fry. There will be indictments, but now all these people are going to be found guilty and get the traitor's reward that they deserve. One of them is Obama CIA chief John Brennan, who of course has also rushed to Comey's defense, saying that James Comey is innocent. Of course he would. And we know that John Brennan is next. He said,
John Durham, the special counsel who investigated over several years and many, many millions of dollars and man hours, didn't find any reason to press charges against Jim Comey.
Well, come on. At this point, we know that John Durham, that whole thing was a joke.
Bill Barr, the former attorney general in Trump's first term, also pushed back mightily against Donald Trump, saying there's nothing there. So again, all of the facts that we know of right now really say that Jim Comey should not be charged.
And then, of course, he tries to make himself the reasonable man. He says,
I worked very closely with Jim Comey while he was director of the FBI and I was director of CIA. Jim Comey is a man of integrity, of honesty. I had some disagreements with Jim Comey about decisions or actions he took. That is natural. But I never had any doubt whatsoever that he was fully committed to the rule of law and a commitment to uphold his oath of office, which he has done.
So, of course, you always say, I disagree with him, but, he was a good guy. And then, of course, the same narrative we hear from everyone on the left, from the swamp, and their comrades and the mainstream Mockingbird media. Brennan also says,
and so from the standpoint of projection in terms of this Trump administration, putting on Jim all of these labels and these allegations that I think are really hollow, it really, again, I think is more reflective of the Trump administration overall that is going to continue to follow Donald Trump's lead as far as on this revenge tour.
That's right. This is all a revenge tour.
From what Comey did, which we know he did, I mean, they doctored evidence to get warrants to spy on Trump. He basically created a conspiracy to unseat a president and sabotage a presidency. It almost seems like he was undercharged here.
And I want to end with this, folks. I think Matt Taibbi said it best when we talk about the gravity of all this. When he said,
yeah, I think so. People have to remember what is the substance of these lies? What were they for? These news stories that were put out there that were leaked to the press, the thrust of them was that Donald Trump was under the throes of a foreign government. He was a Russian agent. Think of the national security implications of implying that your own president is a spy for a foreign country. Would that be tolerated in any normal country? You cannot let that go on. You can't have an FBI director doing these kinds of things and engaging in these sorts of manipulations and lying to Congress about it and getting away with it.
Think of the national security implications of implying that our president was a spy for a foreign country. Folks, this is why we can't let this go. So bravo, President Trump doing his job, and we are seeing the swamp being drained. And before you go, folks, if you didn't do so, please hit that like button, hit the notification bell, and please check out my other show. If you want to see me report without filters, without any sort of big platform censorship, go over to bcpextras.com or therealbcp.com. Until the next one, ciao, goodbye, big hug, God bless.